Okay, it says I'm live. It took a little while. Hello, everyone. It is Thursday. Yes, it's Thursday, the 11th of July, 2024. So I got the 7-11 in there. Not lost on me. I think that 7-11 is overused by certain occult groups or brotherhoods or sisterhoods, and it's getting out of control. It is what it is. So much in the news again today. There's Canadian and American, international, you name it. It's out there, tracking and exhausting. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna focus on Canadian stuff first before I get into the deception regarding evolution. I've talked about this for years. Don 189 on Rumble. If you're not looking at those videos, please do, because on YouTube you're not even getting a 20th of the videos that I've submitted on Rumble, and that doesn't even include archived videos that I haven't even put on Rumble yet from the years I've been sharing this stuff. But I digress. I wanted to get into Wayne Eyre, the Chief of Defense Staff, who was able to honorably resign and likely going to be promoted at some point yet again, and or release honorably, and get some kind of a corporate job, become incorporated, and then further sell out Canadians on an international forum. When I know countless heroes that were under his command that were dishonorably discharged, including when they were pregnant, with over 20 years service, with over 34 years service, etc., and literally had to be forced into an early retirement and or a retirement when they didn't want to, and or kicked out, like I said, and not able to work any other government job at this point in their lives because of how they were released. And people like Jen Carignan, who's the current CDS that took over for him, she is a coward. She is woefully underqualified, underskilled, inexperienced, has no idea the reality of the world either. And she's going to be pushing the same woke DEI diversity bullshit as she's been pushing now for the last several years, including during COVID when she was trying to get it. Anyway, I digress. Wayne Eyre is a traitor. He's a treasonous scumbag. I said what I said, and I'm getting all amped up. And I guess I'm just like motivated to speak out on this stuff and be a little bit more aggressive in my terminology, because people like Candace Owens, right? I'm hearing her, and she's calling out people, rightfully so, who have been puppets and morons that have been pushing so much misconception and deception over the years that, and it's killed people, right? It's caused a lot of harm. It's caused a lot of suffering. It's caused a lot of death. Pierce Morgan, I'm talking to you as well. And it's about time that more people that are considered to be the independent journalists or whatever you want to call the mainstream media, and I guess independent sources of information, they need to speak out more and call out the big names, right? The Rachel Maddows, she's also a traitor. And in Canada, CBS, CTV, CBC, Global News, even Rebel News, actually now. They have like a handful of great independent journalists, but they're still towing the party line. They're speaking a little bit about what's going on with the reality, but not even a touch on what like people like Press for Truth, for example, speaks on. Jeremy McKenzie, myself. And anyway, so Wayne Eyre, still not in jail, still not being investigated, still getting propped up, which a lot of people within the Canadian Armed Forces and retired, and a lot of first responder types, and a lot of people in my current industry, International Security Advisory, I guess, Council, he completely shit the bed on Ukraine and Russia, completely shit the bed on what's going on with Israel and Palestine, and then just like this NATO coalition, our involvement in it, promoting and pushing questionable policies and war measures and things like that. Anyways, I'm going on these tangents. Bill Blair, who was the Minister of National Defense and who was the Emergency Act something or other during the Freedom Convoy time, who was the Chief of Police in Toronto during the G20 summit in that was like over a decade ago. I think it's 2007, I want to say. Anyway, he committed crimes against humanity during that period, and involving crisis actors, setting a police car on fire, and illegally detaining people, and excessive use of force, using teams that were headhunting people, specifically like targeting people that weren't even part of this peaceful protest that was happening in downtown Toronto to get this to speak out against what's going on with WEF and these criminal institutions that were trying to have overreach within Canada, and it worked because even Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland have been involved with WEF for many years. And it's only our prime minister and deputy prime minister. No big deal. No big deal. Like, no concerns there, right? No conflict of interest, no bias, no loyalties that transcends the country and nation and all that stuff, and our culture and our ideologies, and no big deal, right? Anyways, he's the news because he's lied again about spending and finances regarding the Canadian Armed Forces. And yeah, so I've shared that on Instagram if you want to take a look at that. And again, this guy is guilty of treason. He is a traitor to Canada and Canadians and NATO. And the fact that he is still in cabinet is disgusting. And this guy makes over $400,000 a year, and a lot of tax write-offs that we are paying for. And the fact that he deserves jail and he's getting all this money just disgusts me. And it disgusts a lot of people. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that because it fires me up, and I wanted to get on to the main events here. Oh, there's so many to start from. Like, I actually want to share something from Redacted as well, because they're talking about bird flu and these conventions that are coming up, and these new committees that are fucking shitting the bed on, like, even giving accurate information regarding, like, the propaganda they're pushing and hanging up on Clayton. So I got that video as well, but I'm going to share this one first. Dinosaurs, science or science fiction? And this is from a while ago, or maybe not this one. So this one was from 2022, but in 2014, he published his popular article and video, Dinosaurs Never Existed. I watched that. It was incredible. And Eric Dubé, people can say what they want to say about him. People either love him or hate him.
In 2000,
I'm on the bandwagon where I love his work, and I profoundly respect his intellect. And yeah, and so sometimes he can be a little bit controversial, but so am I, right? And he does call out truthers that I like. I don't like that aspect of it, but I understand where he's coming from, and I understand where they're coming from as well when they rebut his videos attacking them. And so even within the truther community, like I've said, there is infighting, very much so, and it's because people, it's not about anything other than trying to understand and explain and get to the closest version of reality as possible. And yeah, so it's coming from a good place. So he's called out, anyway, I won't even get into it, but he's called out truthers that I like and respect and admire. And instead of just possibly trying to commit to some kind of a forum, a public forum even, or even a personal fucking chat, to squash this. Because when it looks like mommy and daddy are fighting, it can make the children a little bit stressed, right?
14.
Anyway.
When I published my popular article and video, Dinosaurs Never Existed, it was very difficult to find any good information on the subject. But two sources I found and referenced were David Wozney's article, Dinosaurs, Science or Science Fiction, and Robin Kofid's article, The Dinosaurs Never Existed. Now, in 2022, it is no easier to find good information on this subject, and even those two sources have been all but scrubbed from the internet. Robin Kofid's article and his entire GVE News website have since been deleted, and mysteriously neither the article or his site are even recognized by the archive.org Wayback Machine. If anyone is able to find that piece in its entirety, please send it to me. David Wozney's original article and website have also mysteriously been deleted, but I was able to find a saved copy and am making this video to preserve it for posterity. If anyone watching this has not already seen my documentary, Evolution and Dinosaurs Debunked, please stop this video and watch that one first. Link in the description box below. When children go to a dinosaur museum, are the displays they see displays of science or displays of art and science fiction? Are we being deceived and brainwashed at an early age into believing a dinosaur myth? Deep, probing questions need to be asked of the entire dinosaur business. This video will discuss the possibility that there may have been an ongoing effort since the earliest dinosaur discoveries to plant, mix, and match bones of various animals such as crocodiles, alligators, iguanas, giraffes, elephants, cattle, kangaroos, ostriches, emus, dolphins, whales, rhinoceroses, etc., to construct and create a new man-made concept, prehistoric animal called the dinosaur. This video does not claim that dinosaurs never existed or that scientists just made up dinosaurs. Note the use of the words possible, possibly, possibility, may, and could. There is an important difference between claiming something is true and claiming something is possible. Where bones from existing animals are not satisfactory for deception purposes, plaster substitutes may be manufactured and used. Some material similar or superior to plasticine clay or plaster of Paris would be suitable. Molds may also be employed. A 144-page book titled Make Your Own Dinosaur Out of Chicken Bones provides step-by-step instructions complete with detailed drawings and diagrams. What would be the motivation for such a deceptive endeavor? Obvious motivations include trying to prove evolution, trying to disprove or cast doubt on the Bible and the existence of God, and trying to disprove the young earth theory. Yes, there are major political and religious ramifications. The dinosaur concept could imply that if God exists, he may have tinkered with his idea of dinosaurs for a while, then perhaps discarded or became tired of this creation, and then went on to create man. The presented dinosaur historical timeline could suggest an imperfect God who came up with the idea of man as an afterthought, thus demoting the biblical idea that God created man in his own image. Dinosaurs are not mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. Highly rewarding financial and economic benefits to museums, educational and research organizations, university departments of paleontology, discoverers and owners of dinosaur bones, and the book, television, movie, and media industries may cause sufficient motivation for ridiculing of open questioning and for suppression of honest investigation. The book Early Dinosaur Discoveries in North America provides revealing information about the first discoveries. Quote, the class Dinosauria was originally defined by Sir Richard Owen in 1842, in a 2-hour speech that reportedly held the audience captivated. The original dinosaurs of this new group were Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Haliosaurus. However, each of these animals was known only from fragmentary specimens. It wasn't until the discoveries of dinosaurs in North America in the mid-19th century that people began to get a clearer picture of what dinosaurs looked like. It is generally accepted that the first discovery of dinosaur remains in North America was made in 1854 by Ferdinand Vanderveer Hayden during his exploration of the upper Missouri River. Near the confluence of the Judith and Missouri rivers, Hayden's party recovered a small collection of isolated teeth, which were later described by the Philadelphia paleontologist Joseph Leidy in 1856, in the Proceedings of the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia. So, dinosaurs were described in 1842 before the discoveries in 1854 that were required to give a clear picture of what dinosaurs looked like. Were discoveries made or constructed to fit the descriptions? Continuing on, quote, dinosaur skeletons were found for the first time in abundance in the Garden Park area of Colorado and at Como Bluff, Wyoming, in the late 1870s. These specimens initiated the first great dinosaur rush in North America, driven largely by the efforts of a Philadelphia paleontologist, Edward Drinker Cope, and Othniel Marsh, a paleontologist from Yale University. These two men started as friends but became bitter rivals in a feud of legendary proportions. The stories surrounding these two include tales of armed field parties, spies, and intercepting shipments of fossils intended for the other. Why were fossils being shipped to the discoverers, and from whom? Are Cope and Marsh credited with discoveries that were not their own personal discoveries? If so, Exactly who were really the discoverers, and how trustworthy are they? Wayne Grady explains in his book The Dinosaur Project, quote, "From Cope, Sternberg had learned cutthroat bone hunting. Cope and his arch-rival, Othniel Charles Marsh, professor of paleontology at Yale University, had been engaged in what have been called the Bone Wars throughout the 1870s and 1880s. It was a fierce scientific rivalry that entailed some of the most underhanded shenanigans in the history of science. But it also amassed stupendous collections of fossils. The second great dinosaur rush took place in the Badlands of the Red Deer River in southern Alberta. Dinosaur remains had been known from this region as early as 1884, but it wasn't until 1910 that this region became an active collecting area. It was here that the second great collecting rivalry took place between Barnum Brown of the American Museum of Natural History in New York and C. H. Sternberg of the Geological Survey of Canada. Why should various claims of people who engaged in, quote, some of the most underhanded shenanigans in the history of science be believed? Why were there no discoveries by Native Americans in all the years previous when they roamed the American continents? There is no belief of dinosaurs in the Native American religion or tradition. For that matter, why were there no discoveries prior to the 19th century in any part of the world? According to the World Book Encyclopedia, quote, before the 1800s, no one ever knew that dinosaurs ever existed. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, large deposits of dinosaur remains were discovered in western North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Dinosaur deposits also lie in Belgium, Mongolia, Tanzania, West Germany, and many other parts of the world. Why has man suddenly made all these discoveries? The land areas of Belgium, Mongolia, Tanzania, Western Germany, and the Americas as well were inhabited and very well explored for thousands of years, and there were no discoveries until the 19th century. At Dinosauria Fossil Record, we learn that, quote, the late 1800s were the golden age of dinosaur paleontology,
Mm-hmm.
when many animals that you might be familiar with were discovered and named. Today, we seem to be in another dinosaur renaissance, with new information accumulating rapidly. At The Meaning of the Hadrosaurus Find, Proof that Dinosaurs Were Real, we learn that people were allegedly becoming enlightened by the new discoveries. The impression that I receive is that people were possibly being deceived and that the discoveries were possibly being made as an effort to try to discredit the Bible. The Meaning of the Hadrosaurus Find, Proof that Dinosaurs Were Real states, quote, the first real proof of dinosaur existence, 8 years after this reference book was published, the first comprehensive skeletal form of a real dinosaur, Hadrosaurus falki, was unearthed in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Taller than a house, it had the pelvic structure of a bird, the tail of a lizard, and incredibly, it walked upright on 2 legs, foraging with arm-like forelimbs. Were the bones of a bird and lizard and other animals used in the discovery? The presented Haddonfield skeleton did not prove dinosaurs ever were real living creatures. Most people have handled animal bones and would be able to notice the higher density and different color or texture of most so-called fossilized bones. However, discoveries and excavations most typically seem not to be made by disinterested people, such as farmers, ranchers, hikers, outdoor recreationists, building construction industry basement excavators, pipeline trench diggers, and mining industry personnel, but rather by people with vested interests, such as paleontologists, scientists, university professors, and museum organization personnel who were intentionally looking for dinosaur bones or who have studied dinosaurs previously. Do dinosaur professionals with vested interests have some kind of well-kept secret about knowing where to search that dinosaur amateurs without vested interests are unable to figure out? The finds are often made during special dinosaur bone hunting trips and expeditions by these people to faraway regions already inhabited and explored. This seems highly implausible. More believable is the case of the discovery of the first original Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, which were unintentionally discovered by a child, and which were all published by 1955. In some cases of discoveries of dinosaur bones by people who do not work in a job related to dinosaurs, it was suggested to them by some dinosaur professional to look or dig in a certain area. In other cases, the government had considerable foreknowledge that dinosaur amateurs would be digging in a certain area. Also very interesting to note are special areas set aside and designated as dinosaur parks, for which amateur dinosaur hunters are required to first obtain a dinosaur hunting license. Take a look at Dilophosaurus discovered and the discovery of Haddonfield's dinosaur for some ideas as to how this may have occurred. Also, a multitude of bones and dinosaurs are strangely found in the same place, suggesting possible planting of bones. The following 3 paragraphs are from The Seizure of Sue the T-Rex. Quote, "The Larsons are still working this find, which they called the Ruth Mason Quarry. The find contained the remains of at least 2,000 beasts. There is only speculation as to the reasons so many bones were in one place. The river system could have transported the bones a few at a time to a sandy coast at the edge of a receding Cretaceous sea, or a great storm could have trapped and drowned a herd on a spit of land. A preponderance of the fossils were of Emontosaurus annectens, a duck-billed dinosaur which migrated in flocks. Various carnivores' teeth, including that of T-Rex, were also found at the site, which could simply mean that these beasts were scavenging the remains. We are only guessing," said Pete. In July 1990, Maurice Williams, who had a ranch nearby, came by the quarry. He was fascinated by the work and offered to let the...
So I'm going to stop sharing this. You get the point. There have been people that have been faking evolution and lying about it for generations. And it's taking more and more people in order to speak out on it and call it out at risk to their own careers and reputations, like I repeatedly have said. And so this isn't his original video. This is Eric Dubé again, from 4 years ago, but this was published in 2014, I believe. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a taste of this one as well. I'm fairly certain I've shared this one as well. It's probably been a few years, and again, my YouTube account got deleted on me again a couple months ago. My most recent one. So this is all probably lost.
Scientific materialist atheist worldview propagated by NASA, the mainstream media, and the public education system is that you are here because nothingness, for no reason, exploded and created everything. Before time, space, matter, consciousness, intelligence, and life, there was nothing. Then the nothingness exploded. And instead of destroying things like every other explosion ever, this explosion created things, created everything. The nothingness explosion somehow created space, time, and all matter in the universe in an instant and for no reason at all. Then all of the creationary explosive debris flying outward at over 670 million miles per hour for 14 billion years culminated to create you. Yes, first some of the more gaseous nothing came together, forming suns and stars. Then solid pieces of the nothing came together, forming planets and moons. Then the nothing turned hydrogen and oxygen came together, forming water on the nothing planet Earth, out of which single-celled living organisms magically appeared, got to work dividing and multiplying into multi-celled conscious organisms, which multiplied and divided and mutated into various forms of sea life, which adapted and evolved and crawled onto land, replacing gills with lungs, lost tails, grew opposable thumbs, and started grasping at straws like this ridiculous nihilistic notion of Big Bang evolution. This anti-God materialist theory of evolution has been staunchly protected by the infallibility of science for over 150 years, but in actual fact, just as science has failed to find one true, valid proof that Earth is a ball spinning around the sun, scientists have failed to discover a single piece of evidence that the material world is a product of blind chance evolution. Furthermore, Big Bang evolution actually requires and presupposes.
And people are saying in the science that are trying to rebut this, like the scientific community saying like, oh, we don't believe in the Big Bang theory anymore. Have you talked to Neil deGrasse? Have you talked? And first of all, he's an actor. He's a known actor, and he's shitty at that. And even when he's on his cue cards, like it's just terrible. But anyways, I digress. But yeah. I did want to mention too, regarding Justin Trudeau, he's getting canceled all over the place. Literally, the majority of Canadians despise this man, and he's clueless as to the extent of it. And so even Mick Jagger was in Canada recently, showing his support for Justin Trudeau, and he got booed. Okay, he got booed, and this guy, this clown, still in.
Opposes many other claims which have already been proven false in previous chapters, such as the plurality of worlds, Newton's theory of gravity, Einstein's theory of relativity, stars being distant suns, and Earth being a planet, not a plane. Harun Yahya wrote, "Evolutionary theory claims that life started with a cell that formed by chance. According to this scenario, 4 billion years ago, various lifeless chemical compounds underwent a reaction in the primordial atmosphere on the Earth, in which the effects of thunderbolts and atmospheric pressure led to the formation of the first living cell. The first thing that must be said is that the claim that inanimate materials can come together to form life is an unscientific one that has not been verified by any experiment or observation. Life is only generated from life. Each living cell is formed by the replication of another cell. No one in the world has ever succeeded in forming a living cell by bringing inanimate materials together, not even in the most advanced laboratories. The theory of evolution faces no greater crisis than on the point of explaining the emergence of life. The reason is that organic molecules are so complex that their formation cannot possibly be explained as being coincidental, and it is manifestly impossible for an organic cell to have been formed by chance. How could all the interconnected and compartmentalized components, the cell wall, the cell membrane, the mitochondria, proteins, DNA, RNA, ribosomes, lysosomes, cytoplasm, vacuoles, nucleus, and other cell parts magically come together and create conscious, intelligent life from unconscious, dead matter? Just making one average-sized protein molecule is already composed of 288 amino acids of 12 varying types, which can be combined to 10 to the 300th power different ways. Of all those possibilities, only one forms the desired protein molecule, and there are over 600 types of proteins combined in the smallest bacteria ever discovered. Astronomer Fred Hoyle compared the odds that all the multifaceted and multifunctional parts of a cell could coincidentally come together and create life, analogous to a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and assembling a Boeing 747 from the materials therein. Hoyle wrote that if there were a basic principle of matter which somehow drove organic systems toward life, its existence should easily be demonstrable in the laboratory. One could, for instance, take a swimming bath to represent the primordial soup, fill it with any chemicals of a non-biological nature you please, pump any gases over it or through it you please, and shine any kind of radiation on it that takes your fancy. Let the experiment proceed for a year and see how many of those 2,000 enzymes, protein produced by living cells, have appeared in the bath. I will give the answer, and so save all the time and trouble and expense of actually doing the experiment. You will find nothing at all, except possibly for a tarry sludge composed of amino acids and other simple organic chemicals. Even if scientists placed all the chemical substances necessary for life in a tank, applied to them any processes of their choice, and waited for billions of years, not a single living cell could or would ever form. Astrobiologist Chandra Wickraman Singh wrote, "The likelihood of the spontaneous formation of life from inanimate matter is 1 to a number with 40,000 zeros after it. It is big enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. The beginnings of life were not random. They must have been the product of purposeful intelligence. From my earliest training as a scientist, I was very strongly brainwashed to believe..."
Oh, good questions. Any idea why Eric Dubé went after Jaron? I think I can make my own assessments. I don't think I'm not Eric, so I can't speak for him, but I do. This is just my own interpretation. Again, it could be wrong, but he is very much someone that's been in the truther community for over a decade. He's one of the originals, like I've said, and he's very smart, very smart. Like, he's a freaking genius. Like, there's no doubting that. And I think that with that, sometimes people are not aware of just how they possibly come across to other people when they're coming from a good place. I think he's coming absolutely from a good place. I don't think he's trolling anyone. I think that he's just maybe frustrated because his points in his videos were that that the sun's shape and flight path is independent of the shape of the Earth, and so that was his argument, right? So his frustration has to do with if like people are saying that with this final experiment with Will Duffy and Jaron and whoever else wants to go, they're saying that this will absolutely either prove flat Earth or prove globe Earth, and I've said this from the beginning as well. I don't necessarily think that that's true because sure, absolutely, with the model that we explain with the sun's flight path, the observed versus apparent flight path, there are a lot of conclusions that could be made regarding where its position is, where like the sunlight would be would impact the geographic locations, all this stuff. And but again, just like he says with the luminaries and the wandering stars, we've debunked the possible shape of them as well multiple times with actual medical with scientific data and government data as well, and a lot of research and experiments to prove that. However, like even with like I said the other day, when you look at a light bulb on a ceiling, it's independent of the shape of the floor or the structure that's surrounding it. And so just by looking at a light bulb or other light bulbs on the ceiling, you're not going to be able to come up with conclusions on the floor based on that alone. And so what it could do is possibly reaffirm some of the theories that we've proposed based on the sun's path, because like if we were to look at it like I've said, there wouldn't be the possibility of having like a 24-hour sun in the alleged South Pole or in Antarctica based on our proposed model. I'm talking about the truther communities, the flat Earth community. And yeah, and because like the sun's path when it's in the Tropic of Capricorn, it's they're alleging that is like the southernmost pole on the underside of this globular Earth. They're talking about this wet spinning rock whirling through space somehow, like keeping us stuck on the fucking ball. Anyways, and so yeah, there's a lot of there's conclusions that could be made, theories that could be proposed based on like the possible flight path of the sun, and why we would think that it would not follow this 24-hour, for days or however long they're saying it, 24-hour sun in the South Pole. And absolutely, there have been videos that have been faked and edited. It's very clear people that are trying to make it look like there's a 24-hour sun in the South Pole, and these have been repeatedly debunked and refuted, and very obviously so. Even Will Duffy has admitted this, and he's the one that's apparently funding this experiment for two people, one globe earther, one flat earther, and still like the only thing that this could possibly do is just like reaffirm or confirm theories that we've proposed based on the sun's possible flight path. And I hope that makes sense. I'm being very redundant. But yeah, it would not make sense, and that's where Jaron's coming from. So he's saying that based on the globe model, there would be this 24-hour sun just like the North Pole, and there's no proof of this ever happening. And on our model, what we propose it to be, it wouldn't work. And so that's where Jaron's coming from. So I understand that, but correlation does not equal causation. And Jaron is a genius. I understand where he's coming from, and like he said, he has the guts to go and actually do this. He's volunteered himself. Other people have volunteered themselves. I volunteered myself. I talk to Jaron on Telegram quite often, and yeah, and I've said too that I would absolutely go. I would want to confirm the coordinates. I would want so many different factors at play before I would agree to go. And but I would absolutely go. And I've emailed research stations. I've emailed so many different organizations to try to get out to the North Pole and South Pole or Antarctica. And it's very expensive. They're not wrong in that. And so I don't have the money. That's why I've asked for this to be funded. I said that I would give all my research to the people that are funding this, and my assessments and all that stuff, my observations, and still this has been declined. I've said anyway. And so to get that opportunity, I understand why Jaron's taking it, because it would just reaffirm some theories that he has and that other people have. And unless you go out and actually do it and walk the walk and not just talk the talk, then, you know, that's all it is. It's just talk.
That science cannot be
I don't think they're going to see a 24-hour sun. But you know, unless I go out there and physically assess this for myself or get someone that's a reputable source like Jaron. Even if Eric Dubé went out, I would still believe that to be a reputable source, and I would value his feedback and his assessments. Anyways, this is a long ramble. I'm sorry.
Consistent with any kind of deliberate creation. That notion has had to be painfully shed. At the moment, I can't find any rational argument to knock down the view which argues for conversion to.
I would absolutely pay to watch that documentary as well, 1,000%. And yeah, I hope it does happen. I hope there's no fuckery. I think that it's going to be hard. Maybe not. I was going to say it's going to be hard to get a globe earther to commit to that, especially if they do a lot more research leading up to the like the proposed date. I think it's like during the winter solstice when the sun's flight path will be like the furthest south latitude of the equatorial ring at 23.4 degrees. And so every 15 degrees, that's approximately 1,000 miles. And so 23.4, I misspoke yesterday when I said approximately 1,660 kilometers in distance. I meant to say miles. Yeah, and that would be the distance from the equatorial ring path, right? And so I can. There's so many things too, even with like this possible alleged axial tilt that Will Duffy tries to explain away. You know, saying this is why we have like winter and summer during these seasons. Are you fucking kidding me? And show me any kind of a tilt on a fucking ball, on a basketball, please. And even the alleged Earth is what allegedly spins like on a 24-hour basis at approximately 1,060 miles per hour. And so even on a span of a day, like that spin, like the axe, like that tilt would be observed by the sun if we were possibly spinning. And so there's just so much nonsensical fucking allegations claimed by globe earthers that we can easily debunk if you actually just thought about it. And they consistently push the same bullshit propaganda notes that people like Professor Dave and Craig and MC Toon and Ozian and these fucking idiots spew without having the understanding of how stupid they sound to actual people that understand what's going on.
To God. We used to have an open mind. Now we realize that the only logical answer to life is creation and not accidental random shuffling. Harun Yahya wrote, "Scientific proofs from such branches of science as paleontology, microbiology, and anatomy reveal evolution to be a bankrupt theory."
And good morning, November, to you as well. I did get your email, and I did reach out to Jaron this morning on Telegram, so I asked him about getting on the VIP Access show on Jaronism. The next one, I believe, is the 20th of July. I love that date, obviously. So July 19th is the 201st day of the year this year because it's a leap year, but July 20th is a significant day for various different groups, during a non-leap year being the 201st day of the year. And when there's been so many things happen, including the staged and faked moon landings in 1969. And with the 201, 102, the 120, however you want to friggin' break these numbers down, a lot of significance, even with presidents, getting sworn in or whatever you want to call it. It's usually around January 20th. So you've got the 0120, the Actonauts coming to Ottawa in 1969. That was on the 2nd and 3rd of December, but on the 2nd of December is when they met with our lying Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the father of Justin Trudeau. Shitty family, no offense. Propagating lies for generations. And it didn't start with Pierre Elliott Trudeau either. also an alleged pedophile who met Margaret when she was a very young child in BC on a beach. But I digress. Runs in the family. But anyway, so you got the December. Some people believe that to be the 10th month. It's even in the name deck, like a decagon 10-sided. But anyway, and so that would be 10/2. And so you've got that in there as well. So I will respond back. And I did reach out to Jaren with that because I'm due. Like I haven't been on any lives podcasts with people for a while. And I would like to get back into that.
It has been stressed that evolution is incompatible with scientific discoveries, reason, and logic. Those who believe in the theory of evolution think that a few atoms and molecules thrown into a huge vat could produce thinking, reasoning professors, university students, scientists, artists, antelopes, lemon trees, and carnations. Moreover, the scientists and professors who believe in this nonsense are educated people. That is why it is quite justifiable to speak of the theory of evolution as the most potent spell in history. Never before has any other belief or idea so taken away people's powers of reason, refused to allow them to think intelligently and logically, and hidden the truth from them as if they had been blindfolded. Consciousness, life, the beautiful diversity, complexity, and interconnectedness of nature and the universe simply could not be the result of some random coincidental physical phenomenon. If the likelihood of life forming from inanimate matter is 1 to the 10 to the 40,000th power, then those are precisely the magnificent odds against which the universe could be unintelligently designed. Even the simple formation of DNA and RNA molecules are similarly beyond the reach of chance to come together, equivalent to 1 times 10 to the 600th power, or 10 with 600 zeros afterwards. Such a mathematical improbability actually so closely borders the impossible that the word improbable becomes misleading. Mathematicians who regularly work with these infinitesimally small numbers say anything beyond 10 to the 50th power should be considered, for all intents and purposes, impossible. Dr. Leslie Orgel, an associate of Francis Crick, the discoverer of DNA, wrote, "It is extremely improbable that proteins and nucleic acids, both of which are structurally complex, arose spontaneously in the same place at the same time. Yet it also seems impossible to have one without the other. And so, at first glance, one might have to conclude that life could never, in fact, have originated by chemical means. Or, as Turkish evolutionist Professor Ali Demirsoy stated, the probability of the coincidental formation of cytochrome C, just one of the essential proteins for life, is as unlikely as the possibility of a monkey writing the history of humanity on a typewriter without making any mistakes. Some metaphysical powers beyond our definition must have acted in its formation." Harun Yahya wrote, "Let us suppose that millions of years ago a cell was formed which had acquired everything necessary for life, and that it duly came to life. The theory of evolution again collapses at this point, for even if this cell had existed for a while, it would eventually have died, and after its death, nothing would have remained, and everything would have been reverted to where it had started. This is because the first living cell, lacking any genetic information, would not have been able to reproduce and start a new generation. Life would have ended with its death. The genetic system does not only consist of DNA, the following things must also exist in the same environment: enzymes to read the code on the DNA, messenger RNA to be produced after reading these codes, a ribosome to which messenger RNA will attach according to this code, transfer RNA to transfer the amino acids to the ribosome for use in production, and extremely complex enzymes to carry out numerous intermediary processes. Such an environment cannot exist anywhere apart from a totally isolated and completely controlled environment, such as the cell, where all the essential raw materials and energy resources exist. The Big Bang theory is easily proven false, as the nature of explosions is
Oh,
to
God, yeah.
destroy, to break things down into their
Conservation of angular momentum alone, the fact that we have like retrogrades and so many other things too, with like the anyway, with the luminaries, it would be an impossibility with a Big Bang theory. And yeah, so take a look at that.
constituent parts, increasing
Conservation of
chaos
angular
and
momentum.
decreasing order. Explosions simply do not and cannot create things, causing disparate parts.
That's my point too. There's so many different experiments and tests that have been done, and logical conclusions that have been made or ascertained regarding this not being a globe, and repeatedly. So even with the Bedford experiments, there are so many people like Tycho Brahe was like speaking on this, Eudoxus, Hypatia. From the past, if these people even existed, people have absolutely spanked like that. There's no curve, especially with the proposed mathematical calculations that were provided to us, consistently debunked. There's no physical geographical curve to be found, and you would need that to even form this shape of this globe, or what do you want to call it. There would be some kind of a downward slope needed in order to even propose this idea. And Michelson Morley proved that this Earth is it does not move, and others before and after them did as well. And so there's so many different significant tests that have been done that completely fucking destroy, I'm swearing again, the proposed claims made by these globe earthers and these fake ass claims about, anyway, so many different things that that this would be another thing too. Like we shouldn't be seeing the 24-hour sun in the South Pole, in the Antarctic regions at all. And so this would be another thing that would possibly be debunked in December. And but this is going to be more things. There's going to be more excuses made. There's going to be more excuses made because, again, since the dawn of time, there have been people that have been trying to expose the truth, and people that were considered to be the greats of their time that redacted their claims, including Galileo, and on their deathbeds and stuff like that. And people don't consider that. Like even with Charles Darwin, like his theory of evolution, like it's been repeatedly debunked. And so many people that were even faking like the embryos that are still in evolutionary books right now, like scientific books. Like there's so much misinformation, and it's not being properly verified. And I was part of Carleton University even recently. Like I said, I'm in my fourth year for another degree, a science degree, cognitive science was going to be my I guess you would say specialty. But then I was going on towards other courses that I had to take regarding the cognitive science course that I was also consistently trying to question and getting nowhere. And because during COVID I wasn't vaccinated, so I wasn't allowed to even enter the campus or even have meetings. But I emailed and called professors, heads of departments. It went nowhere. In fact, they tried to give me a fucking welfare check by a fucking 20-year-old. Because, are you okay? Did you read the email that I submitted to professors before you gave me this wellness check? Because I'm talking about pretty fucking factual events here that need to be ascertained and looked at. But it went nowhere. So it's on hold because I'm not going to get a fake ass degree and from a fake ass pseudoscience institution until they actually teach the correct data. But they're refusing to listen to anyone that goes against their narrative, and it's frustrating. And I was also someone that was working as a facilitator through Ottawa University to teach homeless people various courses as well, to give them to pad their resumes, but also give them credits for courses and things like that. And even within Ottawa University, like a lot of pseudoscience being taught, and Toronto University as well. And so this is where we're at. And until education systems actually take a look at the work that people like myself have repeatedly shared over the years, it's going to go nowhere. And they think that they have the professional background or the credibility behind their titles in order to refuse to look at science and actually even like government data and medical data as well. Because they even gave information on COVID to their COVID teams as well, and they refused to look at that medical, scientific, and government data that I've showed to people on this platform thousands of times at this point. And so, we have people hiding behind titles that have no fucking idea what they're doing or teaching, and not realizing that it's completely incorrect. And they're lying to future generations and causing harm and death indirectly by doing so.
Parts to combine into more ordered wholes, as the Big Bang Theory contends. Similarly, the theory of evolution is proven false by entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. It is a fact that systems left to their own devices tend to become corrupted, disordered, and dispersed over time. All things, living or not, wear out, deteriorate, and decay. They do not spontaneously come together over time in incredibly implausible combinations, creating diverse, complex, and beautiful living forms. Thus, the theory of evolution is in direct opposition to the law of entropy. Evolution supposes things become more ordered, more structured, and more complex over time. But from rust to mold to rotting corpses, nature is everywhere at odds with such a notion. Furthermore, according to the Le Chatelier principle in chemistry, life could not have been formed in the sea as evolutionists allege anyway, since the peptide bond created by amino acid chains produces water molecules. It is not possible for such a reaction to take place in a hydrous environment. Harun Yahya wrote, "Organic matter can self-reproduce only if it exists as a fully developed cell with all its organelles in an appropriate environment where it can survive, exchange materials, and get energy from its surroundings. This means that the first cell on Earth was formed all of a sudden, together with its amazingly complex structure. What would you think if you went out hiking in the depth of a thick forest and ran across a brand new car among the trees? Would you imagine that various elements in the forest had come together by chance over millions of years and produced such a vehicle? All the parts in the car are made of products such as iron, copper, and rubber, the raw ingredients for which are all found on the earth. But would this fact lead you to think that these materials had synthesized by chance and then come together and manufactured such a car? There is no doubt that anyone with a sound mind would realize that the car was a product of an intelligent design, in other words, a factory, and wonder what it was doing there in the middle of the forest. The sudden emergence of a complex structure in a complete form, quite out of the blue, shows that this is the work of an intelligent agent, an extraordinarily complex all over the world.
I'm going to fast forward through.
Darwin hoped that
I have shared this video before, and there's so much that has been consistently debunked regarding the evolution story with other pseudo. There we go. I wanted to share this before I get to that.
They declare the nonsense that the unconscious process known as chance gradually brought this world and all the billions of wonderful living things in it into being, to be the greatest scientific explanation. In short, these people regard chance as a god and claim that it is intelligent, conscious, and powerful enough to create living things and all the sensitive balances in the universe. One of the first frauds in the history of Darwinism, known as recapitulation theory and heralded as undeniable proof of evolution, was an idea proposed and propagated by a racist eugenicist professor named Ernest Haeckel in the late 19th century. A contemporary and friend of Charles Darwin, and
ask the brilliant genius Dave Murphy and what he thinks about this stuff.
and Thomas Bulldog Huxley, Haeckel postulated that human and other animal embryos experience a miniature form of the entire evolutionary impulse during their development in the womb, displaying first characteristics of fish, then reptile, and lastly mammalian or human. It has long been eliminated from scientific literature, but many people and popular sources still unknowingly quote and believe in Haeckel's fraudulent work. Several popular magazines and school textbooks, as recently as the 1990s, over a century after being exposed, were still publishing Haeckel's hoaxed pictures and recapitulation theory as science fact. Harun Yahya wrote, "It has since been proven that this theory is completely bogus. It is now known that the gills that supposedly appear in the early stages of the human embryo are in fact the initial phases of the middle ear canal, parathyroid, and thymus. The part of the embryo which was likened to the egg yolk pouch turns out to be a pouch that produces blood for the infant. The part that had been identified as a tail by Haeckel and his followers is in fact the backbone, which resembles a tail only because it takes shape before the legs do." Another interesting aspect of recapitulation was Ernest Haeckel himself, a faker who falsified his drawings in order to support the theory he advanced. Haeckel's forgeries purported to show that fish and human embryos resembled one another. When he was caught out, the only defense he offered was that other evolutionists had also committed similar offenses. Haeckel was charged with fraud by 5 professors and convicted by a university court at Jena, where he admitted that several of his drawings were forgeries, that he was merely filling in missing links where evidence was thin, and that hundreds of his contemporaries were guilty of the same charge. During the trial, he said, After this compromising confession of forgery, I should be obliged to consider myself condemned and annihilated if I had not the consolation of seeing side by side with me in the prisoner's dock hundreds of fellow culprits, among them many of the most trusted observers and most esteemed biologists. The great majority of all the diagrams in the best biological textbooks, treatises, and journals would incur in the same degree the charge of forgery, for all of them are inexact and are more or less doctored, schematized, and constructed.
Yep.
What an admission! Not only did Haeckel confess his own forgeries, but he admitted that there were hundreds of other scientific fraudsters similarly doctoring findings in the best biological textbooks, treatises, and journals, several of which will be examined in this chapter. As it turns out, Haeckel had simply copied and printed the same human embryo pictures several times over, claiming each were various other animal embryos with exact parallels, when in fact the parallels do not exist, and the pictures were copies he knowingly and intentionally made to suit his recapitulation idea. Malcolm Bowden wrote, "To support his theory, Haeckel, whose knowledge of embryology was self-taught, faked some of his evidence. He not only altered his illustrations of embryos, but also printed the same plate of an embryo 3 times and labeled one a human, the second a dog, and the third a rabbit, to show their similarity." Dr. Michael Richardson wrote, "This is one of the worst cases of scientific fraud. It's shocking to find that somebody one thought was a great scientist was deliberately misleading. It makes me angry. What Haeckel did was to take a human embryo and copy it, pretending that the salamander and the pig and all the others looked the same at the same stage of development. They don't. These are fakes. For the past 150 years, evolutionist scientists have been working diligently to propagandize the public into believing that modern humans are descended from ancient apes. The final and most difficult theoretical leap for the theory of evolution is this supposed million-year transition from ape to human. The utter impossibility of evolving abilities like bipedality, erect spinal columns, and complex linguistic skills has been debated since the theory was first presented, but such obstacles will never stop die-hard evolutionists set on discovering, or inventing, a believable monkey-man transitional species. The first of these convenient evolutionary discoveries was the Neanderthal man, found in the Neander Valley of Germany in 1856. Just in time for the release of Darwin's Origin of Species. To this day, reconstructed drawings of hairy ape-like Neanderthal men are depicted in scholarly journals and school textbooks, and claim to be a missing evolutionary link. The fact is, however, that all so-called Neanderthal remains have never been shown to be any more different from modern humans than an Asian from a Caucasian, or an Inuit from an Aborigine. Also, the skull size shows its brain was actually 13% larger than the average brain of modern man, making it impossible to be an intermediary between man and ape. Even Time magazine in 1971 proclaimed the primitiveness of Neanderthal to be unwarranted, that he could walk the street today unrecognized. One writer even commenting that historians of the future may declare all of us insane for not detecting and refuting this incredible blunder with adequate determination.
That's a fact.
One of the main proponents pushing Neanderthal man as an authentic species nowadays is Rainer Prosch, a German professor who dated the fossils at 36,000 years old, allowing them to fit perfectly in the evolutionist timeline. In 2005, however, Prosch was forced to retire in disgrace by a panel of Frankfurt University heads who determined he had fabricated data and plagiarized the work of his colleagues over the past 30 years. The once renowned carbon dating expert has presently been completely ostracized from the scientific community. It has since been determined that all Neanderthal skeletal remains are no more than a few thousand years old, some only a few hundred. They have also found modern human DNA in the bones, that their brain capacity was 13% larger than the modern average, their height 5'9", comparable to our average, and they had advanced tools, buried their dead, and enjoyed art. University of Berlin professor Rudolf Virchow, Ernest Haeckel's former professor and the father of modern pathology, back in 1872 concluded the original Neanderthal remains were simply that of an unfortunate Homo sapiens who had suffered childhood rickets, adult arthritis, and was victim to several damaging blows to the head. Eric Trinkaus, a paleoanthropologist from New Mexico University, concluded his examination stating, Detailed comparisons of Neanderthal skeletal remains with those of modern human have shown that there is nothing in Neanderthal anatomy that conclusively indicates locomotor, manipulative, intellectual, or linguistic abilities inferior to those of modern humans. In 1891, the next ape-man discovery was found in Java, Indonesia, by Eugene Dubois, who coincidentally happened to be a student and apprentice of evolutionist hoaxer Ernest Haeckel. Dubois found a skull cap, a leg bone, a jaw fragment, and 3 teeth, from which he reconstructed the ape-like Java man. Within 10 years of its discovery, Java man was the main subject of over 80 evolution books and articles. It was given the scientific name of Anthropopithecus erectus, and later changed to Pithecanthropus erectus, and finally, Homo erectus, undoubtedly for superficial pseudoscientific reasons.
Homo and erectus. Erect. Like, even the fucking words that some of these perverts use, like, it's just obvious that they just are pseudoscientists. And again, perverts.
Hank Hanegraaff wrote, Java man was discovered by a Dutchman. I'm a little embarrassed by that because I'm a Dutchman myself. His name was Eugene Dubois. The bones were found in 1891 on an Indonesian island of Java in Southeast Asia along the banks of the Solo River. And there was an interesting assortment. He found a leg bone, a skull cap, a jaw fragment, and 3 teeth. And that's what he concocted Java man from. Interestingly, some of the teeth were old and some young. The bones belonged to ape, female and male. It was an interesting conglomeration, and the reason that people didn't catch on to it is because the find of Dubois was kept from scholars for about 30 years. He also withheld the discovery of modern human remains, which were found in the same stratum as Java man. Of course, that would have ruined his claims that Java man was the ancestor of modern-day humans. Finally, enough pressure was placed on him that the actual bones were allowed to be examined and the discrepancies were found, and eventually, enlightened America, as well as the world, found out that this was a hoax. Unfortunately, hoaxes die hard. Recently, Time magazine ran a cover story entitled, How Man Became Man, and starts off ridiculing Christians and creationists, then goes on to present Java Man as though it were a fact. Java Man's teeth were found to be of different ages, and the bones a mixture of human and ape, with a giant gibbon skull. Rudolf Virchow, Haeckel's own professor and the foremost pathology expert of his time, stated, In my opinion, this creature was an animal, a giant gibbon in fact, and the thigh bone has not the slightest connection with the skull. He and many others have concluded the thigh bone is quite clearly human, while the skull cap and teeth belong to a primate. In 1912, a doctor and paleoanthropologist named Charles Dawson claimed to have found a jawbone and cranial fragment of an ape-man transitional form in a pit in Piltdown, England. It was alleged to be 500,000 years old.
You get the point with
or
this
only
well.
an ordinary.
So
no one ever knew that dinosaurs.
Bone fragments that have been alleged to be dinosaurs and these other friggin' like prehistoric species. And there's even been people tested where they were given bone fragments of even rabbits and not told what they were to start, and coming up with these crazy types of species. And again, this is like present day rabbits bones, and not even close to being able to replicate that. So tests have been done. Like it's so convoluted. And anyway, so I've shared these videos before. Check out Eric Dubé. Absolutely, he has great videos on that. We can watch like the full versions, and there's countless other people as well that share the same information and have come to the same conclusions. I did want to move on. I was questioning talking about this, but I do talk about current events, and this is important. So this is from Redacted. Breaking next pandemic plans exposed before election, bird flu vax being fast tracked. Posted 16 hours ago.
Washington, D.C. Why in the hell is there an emergency bird flu summit in October, right before the election? Wait until you hear what's on the agenda. We'll dial that in for you.
Plus, Israel now controls 26% of Gaza. That's interesting, right? Is this why Benjamin Netanyahu continues to sabotage peace negotiations? Yep. And just ahead of the summit where he comes to Congress and asks for more money from the United States, we're going to talk all about Israel I just wrote there, Israel. I probably should have given you a better title there, but that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, on the rundown, we should have something that explains what the story is. But
Just
Israel.
Supreme Court is
Supreme
also
Court.
what I wrote there. So I apologize. We're going to talk about why Democrats are freaking out about. No, that's on me. I wrote the story. I'm the reporter. I should have done that better. I'm not very good at headlines. Supreme Court, because Democrats are wanting to not only pack the court, but sabotage the court because they're upset that they may lose this November and lose their chance to turn the court into a liberal court. They're just bad losers. We're going to show you that exactly.
And the Senate yesterday held testimony from HHS whistleblowers on the child sex trafficking ring that is in the United States. The United States, of course, the largest purveyor of child trafficking in the world, the largest purveyor of child sex traffickers in the world, and you are paying for it. This was in front of Senator Chuck Grassley, Senator Ron Johnson, and others demanding answers on this. Why is the media totally silent on this? We have Tara Rodas, who's going to be joining us here a little bit later in the show to talk about this testimony and what you guys can do to take action and try to stop this child exploitation that's happening across the United States. Upwards of 400,000 kids missing under the Biden administration's watch. I think it's one of the biggest stories in the world, and no one's talking about it. But we will. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We've got a lot of news to get to here on your Wednesday.
Yeah, and we are back in black, as someone says in the chat. We didn't mean to match, but sometimes when you've been married for a long time, you just do.
Yeah.
That's why people think we look like brother and sister.
Just making sure the audio is all good now. So some people maybe who joined us a little bit late said the audio is out of sync with our voices. Bad audio. Is everything okay now? Is everything okay? Does everything
Voice
sound
in
okay?
sync, they say. Okay.
Voice in sync.
No
All
more
right.
issues.
Philip,
Says
David,
alias
are we
117.
Philip and David, are we good to go on the audio side?
As far as I can tell, I mean, I can't hear the live stream because I'm listening to you guys on the production side. But
Okay, David's texting and saying it sounds good. Okay, maybe we lost David as well. Okay.
No, I'm
all
here.
right.
I'm just
Okay,
just
good.
texting.
I'm just making sure.
In the Matrix.
Yeah, you never know the internet, so we'll figure it out. Okay, we've got a lot of news to get to, but first I want to tell you about our friends over at Mack Weldon. This fills up my closet. This is what I'm wearing right now, actually, my Mack Weldon polo shirts. I love these things. They are timeless. They look fantastic. And if you go into my closet, this is like all I have is Mack Weldon shirts because
turtlenecks. He claims it.
Also using emergency orders to order bird flu vaccines from the vaccine manufacturer CSL Seqirus, which is funded and advised, of course, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're about to hold a massive bird flu summit in Washington, D.C. to plan how they're going to carry out this plan. We'll get to that part of the story in a second. But first, these are the same clowns that locked us up and told us to panic about COVID and preparing disease X right now in the next round of lockdowns. As Dr. Peter McCullough says, bird flu is their next pandemic, and they're trying to make us scared about it.
Well, do you think that the left could use the bird flu pandemic or something else, like the threat of something similar, to rerun the 2020 election?
There's no doubt about it. There will be a factitious food shortage. It doesn't need to happen. There's going to be an overplayed threat to both human and veterinary health. I can tell you, we haven't had a single death in the United States in a person from bird flu. It's probably been around for over 100 years, as indicated in a review by Lysette and colleagues. The current strain of bird flu is not much of a threat to animals. We don't see large number of migratory water birds dead. We haven't seen large numbers of poultry or cattle that have actually died of the disease. So we need to stop intentionally culling or killing healthy animals, which is being promoted by agriculture directors. We need to stop mass PCR testing of the animals by government officials. That doesn't need to happen. And then in no circumstances should we vaccinate the animals or humans for bird flu.
So don't fall for it, is what Dr. Peter McCullough is saying. But that's why they're holding this massive bird flu summit in Washington, D.C., set for early October. Thanks to Cambry for alerting to us on Twitter, by the way. Here's the 3-day bird flu summit. And guys, this is not some conspiracy theory, okay? We're going to show you the actual summit website and their actual sessions that they're holding. So this is their website, the International Bird Flu Summit. as I was working on the story, my son said, "What is a summit? Why are they holding a bird flu summit?" And I said, "Well,
money.
It's a great question. They're charging a lot to go to it, by the way. And you can see all the different speakers that are showing up to the bird flu summit. And then I'm going to show you the breakout sessions here. So it's a 3-day event where you can go to different events and different breakout sessions. I think they have over 20 different breakout sessions. So let's take a look here on your screen. Preparedness in birds, in cattle, prevention and recovery detection in pets and in people, and response in people. So let's go down here and you scroll down on their website. You can all download this if you guys want to and take a look for yourselves. Again, not a conspiracy theory. It's on their website. Here's the first breakout session: mass fatality management planning. So we're all going to die.
That's positive.
How do we handle that? Direct fatality management tactical operations. You know, when all the bodies start piling up, I'm going to go to that breakout session. Activate fatality management operations. Conduct morgue,
I mean, there's not even
operations.
the word prevention. It's like when that happens.
Yes, when it happens.
How do we manage it?
How do we go to the morgue? Continue. Here, I love this. The continuity of government planning. You know, when half the government dies, what do we do about it? Let's go to that session. Strategies for operating with 50% or more absenteeism. So when half the Senate dies, half the House of Representatives die, what do we do about it? Let's go to that session. Or session number 3, business continuity planning. How do we handle making sure that businesses don't collapse and ensure safe travel policies, decision-making for reducing or closing operations? And my favorite, though, of course, is here at the bottom on your screen, implementing remote work policies and flexible schedule. So yes, remote work, of course. Remote work policies and resource allocation for employees and customer protection.
Of course, when I see safe travel, you know that means no travel. They don't want you to travel.
They don't want you to travel at all, right? They don't want you getting on an airplane or anything.
Do you remember Event 201? Remember we covered that? Like where it was a simulation? Like this is like a printout, a PDF printout of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, look, we've covered bird flu. We've been talking about this for weeks now. And so if actually they had good intentions about making sure that bird flu was safe, well, we know we've talked to several doctors here on this show that said, if you let this play out, then the animal population will kind of adapt to it. And as it stands now, it should not mutate to become transmissible between humans. We should leave it be. We should not, as Dr. McCullough said, be mass culling and mass testing animals in anticipation of this, because it indicates to us that that could be a gain of function manipulation, right? So at well-intentioned summit like this would be what? It would be
a well-intentioned summit?
Like, okay, we're going to watch bird flu. We're going to what? Talk about the therapeutics that we currently have, such as things we were not allowed to say, right? We're going to talk about, I don't know, management of information, those kind of things. I mean, I don't like when the government ever says management of information, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
This seems to me a summit in bad faith.
So I decided to give them a call because it turns out on their website, they have a phone number. So the Bird Flu Summit has a phone number, and I had a lot of questions. You know, I had a lot of questions for them. So I called them just a short time ago and asked them a few questions, and here's how it went.
So the Bird Flu Summit has a phone number that you can call, and you can ask questions about their agenda and what they plan to do at the Bird Flu Summit in October. So I'm going to give them a call. Call them the Bird Flu Hotline, Bird Flu Summit Hotline.
Hi, thank you for calling. How can I help you?
Hi, I was trying to reach someone who is perhaps in media relations or who could talk to me about the Bird Flu Summit.
Yeah, how can I help you with that?
Sure. So my name is Clayton. I'm calling from Redacted. We're on a recorded line, if that's okay. I just want to ask you a few questions about the Bird Flu Summit. It's October, right? It's coming up in October? Can you tell me, why are they holding a Bird Flu Summit when it's been around for 100 years, bird flu? There's never been a human case of bird flu that has caused a death. Why are there all of these breakout sessions being held at this Bird Flu Summit that are about public control, emergency services, vaccine deployment? Can you tell me about that a little bit?
All right. So this will be our first year of doing the bird flu, and hold on.
This is your first year of dealing with the bird flu. Is that what you said?
Yeah. This is our first year doing this conference.
Why are they holding this for the first time? Why do you think right now there is this need to hold the conference right now?
Okay, hold on.
Why in 2024 are you holding a bird flu summit? Why now? It's been around for 100 years. Just curious.
Yeah, I understand.
Do you though?
So, as you all know that, yeah, because according to our research, this global transfer allows disease to spread. So,
according to your research, I'm sorry, what? The global transmission, what?
yeah, so there are certain values that are here around.
There are certain viruses that are here and around. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But what viruses specifically are here and around? You're talking about bird flu specifically?
Clayton.
Okay. And so among your breakout sessions are sessions about controlling the population, civil unrest. Is there a concern that Americans or Europeans might become upset or unrestful if in fact they are told to stay in their homes? You have another session that specifically focuses on remote work, so people staying home from work.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely low-hanging fruit, but it's hilarious because like they put this information out there, and they expect that people are not going to try to call and get information.
What evidence is there that people would need to stay home from work, stay in their homes, or be locked down because of bird flu? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So she hung up.
She hung up on me.
Wow.
She hung up.
I mean,
so I guess you're not allowed.
Okay.
I think that is why you don't outsource customer support.
Well, I was just going to say,
well,
like, I'm just going to take a stab in the
supposed to
dark
ask for?
I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say she was not media relations. So I think
Sure.
that's
No, it's a Virginia phone number. I'm calling Virginia. I mean, it's Northern Virginia. This is where the summit is, and she, that this was the call routed to her. There's multiple options when you call that phone number. You can talk to multiple people there.
So wait, let me just get this straight. What she said: there are viruses
that are out there, and that there's a concern about around bird flu now. Around.
They are.
They're here.
Well,
and so we need to have breakout sessions.
She was like the press secretary. She's like going through that.
Oh, she's like,
oh my gosh,
right.
I can help you. Let me look through my book here real quick.
You should have just said, wait, I'm about to give you my credit card. I'm going to register, but first, and then maybe she would have found some information.
I'm going to sign up for a breakout session. I'd like to be a speaker. By the way, you can sign up and be a speaker there if you'd like, and you can pay a lot of money to be a speaker, I guess.
Hey,
it's like $625 to attend.
Can we get a table? Do they have vendors? We have a redacted
They
table.
do. You could be a vendor. We should have a redacted table at the bird flu.
And likely the girl on the other end of likely she has no idea what's going on. She can't answer these questions because she doesn't know. And she's not fed like the bullshit yet. But I guarantee now that it's on redacted, there's going to have like a lot of people reading the scripts, doing the practice training and stuff like that, because there's going to be more people calling in and asking these very same questions. And so it's just like there's people in the UN that don't understand the reality of what's going on at the higher levels, that they're aiding and abetting human trafficking, drug trafficking, etc., and committing a lot of crimes in the process. And but yeah, I mean, if you get like the UN like spokes representatives on the phone that are asking for donations, they don't know, right? And I've even been a bit of a troll with them too. And I'm like when they ask me for donations, because I used to donate to all these friggin' causes. I thought they were good until I went down the rabbit holes And so I've had these conversations. I'm like, do you know that that the UN has been tied to such and such? And they have no idea. And I'm like, you know what? I know you don't know. It's fine, right? But you are assisting in funding human trafficking, child trafficking, and drug cartels across the world. And so yeah. Once you know better, you do better.
This is called Real Journalists Questions about bird flu. And I'm just going to have bullet point and no one's going to stop at our booth, but I'll have peanut butter cups.
I wasn't being a dick. I was just asking the questions that are on your website.
Yep.
Like, why are you having this summit now 100 years later after this thing has been around? Why, when all of these medical professionals are telling us that there's no concern at all, there's nothing to worry about, not even among birds. We have to cull and kill all of these cattle. We have to kill all of these birds. We have to lock people down. You're having breakout sessions about literally mass fatalities and deaths.
So the chat is saying, let's all call back. Let's all call too. If you do, I want to know about it.
To be fair, I mean, that's probably the same way a politician would answer it. Well, there's flus around and viruses out and about.
There are viruses.
Yeah. There's stuff that's out there and about. I don't know.
They exist.
So Dr. Kelly Victory was recently on Redacted. She told us the same thing. We already have had ways to treat this, and there's no cause for concern.
The good news is, and the reason that people should not be fearful of this, is that we have every reason to believe that we have safe, readily available, effective medications to treat bird flu. We have every indication, for example, that it will be easily treated by hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, just like COVID was easily treatable with hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and steroids. The problem was the powers that be prohibited us from even talking about those things, let alone having ready access to them. If doctors were not impeded from treating patients who had COVID with those medications, the death toll and the suffering would have been far less. So hopefully, if bird flu should become something to be concerned about, if it should begin to be transmitted between human beings and between people who are not in direct contact with infected animals, then hopefully we will be allowed to use the medications that we should be able to use, like hydroxychloroquine. If instead they shut those things down in order to foist their mRNA vaccine, quote unquote, agenda on us, then it's going to be up to people to push back and say, no, we fell for that the last time and we're not falling for it again.
Yes.
Oh, mRNA vaccine, you say? Is that why the United States is trying to fund the Moderna mRNA bird flu shot?
Shocking.
That was reported on May 30th in Forbes, if you want to see it for yourself.
Yeah.
So yes, mRNA is the solution to everything. It's the new tofu, I guess.
Well,
goes in everything.
Tomorrow we'll have Max Jones on the show. We're going to talk to him. He's just written a new piece, in Unlimited Hangout. I don't know how you say that. The website is Unlimited Hangout. So he wrote an article in Unlimited Hangout about biopharmaceutical complex and the move to basically keep us permanently in a state of pandemic preparedness. And that's how these big biopharmaceutical companies right now, this is part of their plan because their profits are plummeting now that we're not in a quote unquote pandemic. So how do you raise their profits? Well, you just create more pandemics and
way, doesn't it?
Yep. More profits means it's more pandemics. And so let's hope that people fucking wake up to that. Right now, we still have people in cabinet and people that are approving these friggin' Can4Gens and mandates and policies being implemented. And the experts in Canada, they're still in the same fucking positions. And so until these people get fired and arrested, we're still shit out of luck.
Kinda does. According to new reports, Netanyahu wants to make sure that Israel is still at war when he addresses U.S. Congress in a few weeks. Now that's funny timing, right? I can't go to Congress if we're at peace because I won't have much to say. So I need to still be at war. So the people who die between now and then, that's not on me because I got a speech to make to the American Congress. That seems pretty selfish. Now, it seems that he wants the Zelensky treatment, go to Congress, be lauded as a hero. I mean, why shouldn't he get that? I don't see much difference between Netanyahu and Zelensky at this moment. We're going to make that comparison in a minute. Last month, though, AOC Democratic superstar Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said she does not support Netanyahu's congressional address. Here was her tweet. She said, "This man should not be addressing Congress. He's a war criminal, and he certainly has no regard for U.S. law, which is explicitly designed to prevent U.S. weapons from facilitating human rights abuse." Girl, that's a lull. I can't believe you would even write that with a straight face, because how many U.S. weapons are currently hurting people in Clayton? Do you want to go down the list?
Sure.
Syria, Yemen, but you go ahead.
Syria, Yemen, Ukraine, Sudan,
Iraq,
Somalia.
What else am I thinking?
Somalia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Haiti.
but you're going to just write that? You're just going to write that down as if you don't know right now what U.S. weapons are doing. Dummy. She says his invitation should be revoked, should never have been sent in the first place. Here is Elizabeth Warren saying she too will boycott Netanyahu's speech. It's funny, though, that neither of them had any trouble with Zelensky addressing Congress, because he too is a war criminal.
And they're just leaving a sinking ship, right? These are people who are fully in support of this genocidal maniac at the start of this staged and planned series of events that has been happening in Israel and Palestine, and again for decades, generations, not just since October 7th by any means. And Netanyahu, 2002, lied to Congress about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that killed a lot of fucking people too. He's been a liar. He's a propagandist, lobbyist that's getting a lot of money from sellouts and traitors in NATO. And so, of course, like on the 29th of December of 2022, months before all this stuff happened, of course, he was somehow in power again. And there were even people within Israel that were absolutely against this, rioting and protesting, wanting nothing to do with it, and still now do not support him. And now finally, because of a lot of pushback by people like myself that were calling this out since the beginning, more and more people are realizing that there's genocides going on, okay, crimes against humanity going on. Witness accounts, IDF accounts, you name it. Crisis actors used. Anyway.
That's all nuance to me, isn't it? Both men are actively sabotaging peace that would save lives in their country, respectively, in order to further their own career. Do you see a difference? Do you?
No, I don't.
I do not. So Netanyahu will obviously further the case for his war on Gaza and make sure that American money will not stop. Even in the wake of this news, the Gaza pier, which was destroyed after just 21 days. This here on the left is what we built. It cost us $230 million. On the right is the way it stands right now. And currently there are no plans to rebuild it. Now, shouldn't it upset us that our money is being wasted in this way, draining our own economy? It upsets me.
Calvin Johnstone in our chat says, redacted, is Maui all cleaned up now? Exactly. So $270 million to build some pier in Gaza so we can go and help facilitate the stealing of oil and natural gas, or money that could have been sent to Maui to help build and rebuild that community.
Or the chemical spill in Pennsylvania. Yes, the Pennsylvania
and Ohio
chemical spill. Yeah. Right. Lots of ways we could have used that money, but we did that instead. Now, in May, Congressman Matt Gaetz tried to warn us about this pier, not just about the cost, but the dangers to U.S. soldiers. Nobody cared, but we did. We played this for you, and we're going to play it again.
Ms. Locken just said there'll be about 1,000 U.S. service members operating a pier system off of Gaza. How many of them will have guns, Mr. Secretary?
Well, typically all of the deployed service members carry guns, and they have the ability to protect themselves if challenged.
So if someone from land in Gaza shoots at our service members who are on the $320 million pier that we're building, you're telling me our service members can shoot back?
They have the right to return fire to protect themselves. Now,
well, do we think that's like? So now I want to move to the likelihood that you think someone from land in Gaza might shoot at our service members on this pier. Do you think that that's a likely scenario?
That's possible, yes.
This is a very telling moment, Mr. Secretary, because you've said something that's quite possible that could happen, right? Shots from Gaza on our service members, and then the response, our armed service members shooting live fire into Gaza. That is a possible outcome here so that we can become the Port Authority and run this pier. Right?
That's correct. You know, I expect that we will always have the ability to protect ourselves. Don't you think that counts as
boots on the ground? President Biden told the country that we weren't going to have boots on the ground in Gaza.
And we won't.
Okay, but you guys parse the distinction between, like, when Americans think boots on the ground, they think Americans in harm's way or engaged actively in a conflict.
And they are.
You guys seem to be sort of saying that boots on a pier connected to the ground, connected to service members shooting into Gaza, doesn't count as boots on the ground?
It does not.
I think you're going to find that the Americans will have a different perspective on that. And if we're going to have people shooting into Gaza, we probably should have a vote on that pursuant to our war powers.
Boots floating off the ground.
WSB4 in our Rumble chat says, boots on a pier. Yeah, boots on a pier.
It's ground adjacent.
Some of those guys were even wearing sandals. I mean, come on, that doesn't count at all.
Right.
Crocs. Yeah, they're wearing Crocs.
Now, the safety of those soldiers on that pier is no longer a concern, given the pier was destroyed and there are not plans to rebuild it. So that is a sunk cost, if you know what I mean. You get it?
Yeah, that's great.
A sunk cost. That's an econ joke. I like it. It made me laugh when thanks. Okay, but the war will continue. It's not funny. And now Haaretz is reporting that Israel controls at least 26% of Gaza now, which clearly was always their intention going into this war. It's not defense. So here is what they're saying is a springboard to a Jewish settlement, they say. When they say settlement, obviously they mean they're moving Jewish people in. They do not intend to ever give that land back to Palestinians, which have controlled it as recently as October of 2023. Here's what Haaretz reports says, a senior IDF officer discussing this territory under full IDF control in the heart of Gaza called it an effort at prolonged occupation.
An effort of prolonged occupation is probably what she's going to say. I just wanted to share the King James Version of the Bible, which was established in 1611 or published, whatever you want to call it, by possibly Sir Francis Bacon / Shakespeare. You've got the 6 + 1 is 7. You've got the 711 in that. So it's possibly some kind of a propaganda tool. But even in the King James Version of the Bible, that's why I'm saying it's over 400 years old. Palestine, it's in the Bible. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Because people want to say that it's been owned by Israel and that Palestine never existed and all of this bullshit. And vice versa. People have a misinterpretation of Isis Ra'el in the Bible. But it is what it is.
But the military's activity also provides a tailwind for supporters of the reestablishment of settlements. Now, recall, they got the heck out of there in 2005, begrudgingly. Now they're getting back in. Conditions for the emergence of a new reality are being created, an indefinite Israeli presence in Gaza. So reoccupation of Palestinian lands. Is there any other way to see it? Please let me know if I'm missing some kind of optics here. In peace negotiations, Hamas is demanding that Israel leave Gaza, but it is clear that Netanyahu has no intention of doing that or ending military presence in Gaza, and he never did. He said that since he was in his 30s. You can rewind the tape and see him saying this over and over and over again. This is his dream, his grand vision. He will not relinquish this on his watch. There's no denying that. And now the government of Israel will draft Orthodox Jews into the cause, even though Orthodox Judaism is staunchly anti-war. It's basically their reason for existing is peace. The Torah, as they interpret it, forbids war. It forbids killing. It forbids even having an army. I want to suggest to you this video that our colleague Dan Cohen did over on his Uncaptured Media with Rabbi Shapiro, because Clayton and I watched this over the break, and it is a fascinating viewpoint, actually a studied and erudite take on what Judaism is and how it is not at all represented by the government of Israel. And so now Rabbi Shapiro has agreed to come on Redacted in the coming days, and I'm excited about it. So now what we see is Israel calling themselves a Jewish state, but totally disregarding what Orthodox Jews believe, which is no war, no fighting, no peace. How then can we say that this is religious freedom? How can we say that this is representative of a Jewish state? I ask you, what have I missed here? So let me know what you think of this.
Yeah, it's not how can it be a Jewish state? How can it be? The very thing that they are absolutely against is war,
right?
Violence of any kind, and now you're going to draft them, you're going to make it mandatory.
I think it's worth making this distinction that Hamas rages war on religion as well, and Islam also preaches peace. Right. So both sides are waging a religious war under false pretenses.
Yeah,
not
that's
wrong.
A great point. Well, I'm looking forward to having Rabbi Shapiro on the show.
Very much so.
But we got a lot more news to get to here. We're going to have an HHS whistleblower. You do not want to miss this segment. I'm telling you this. I am very excited to talk to Tara Rodas, who was in the room where it happened yesterday. And I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned that the media hasn't covered this at all. And frankly, independent.
I don't know if he's going to be talking about the requirement for voter ID. How there was like over 198 or something like that Democrat sellouts, traitors to the U.S. I'm not even American, I'm Canadian, but I obviously very much follow your politics and economics and stuff like that because it directly impacts Canada. It is what it is. But voted where people wouldn't need voter ID. And so you need ID to drive, to drink, to so many different things, right? But now to vote, and I've said this for many years, like for the last couple of years on my whiteboard too, that this was going to be another issue, right? Especially with like the surge of immigrants, specifically also illegal immigrants or immigrants being pushed here and in the U.S. For an agenda. A lot of fighting age males, even with criminal records, multiple criminal records. It's appalling, abhorrent. And so coming in and even getting social security or social service numbers, whatever you call it in the U.S., within 4 months of landing. And so anyways, I digress, but like people not requiring voter ID, and they're doing this. The Democrats are doing this, and the liberals are doing stuff like this as well, or trying to push for this stuff because they know that they're going to be the ones voting on their behalf, which is so slimy, and not even caring that they're possibly causing harm and suffering towards their country by allowing this to happen and having more of an influx and a push of this mass migration from criminals. I'm not talking about the people that are coming here legally and to flee areas that are being profoundly impacted by so many different things, whether it be natural or man-made disasters, and wanting to have a safe place to land. But there are also people again that are exploiting that, and there's a lot more crime. There's a lot more organized crime now in Canada, and it's not from people that are landing here legally and or natural born citizens. And I said what I said. I don't care how this fucking sounds. It's just a fact. Look it up yourself.
Media, which a lot of these independent media stations these days are.
And I wouldn't put it past Justin Trudeau or Biden to stage and create some kind of a false flag event in order to make it where there is no elections happening in the near future, because they know they're going to lose. They have such a low approval rating right now. People are trying to say that it's actually being overinflated significantly because there's bots that are also being involved in the polling, and there's also people that are paid influencers that are also being paid to vote in support of these fucking clowns. And so a large majority of the population want there to be people that are fired and jailed, like over 90%, I think. And sorry, I would say anywhere between 75 and 90%, where they're not liking what's going on.
Really just extensions of corporate media, and they're not covering the story. They're not covering the child sex abuse story, the child trafficking story in the United States. And I want to know why. Why are they ignoring, to me, one of the biggest stories in the world right now? But they won't talk about it. And if you do talk about it, you get in trouble by your corporate overlords. So we'll talk about that. She's going to be joining us here in a few moments. We're also going to be talking about Democrats' plan for the Supreme Court, because, they only have a few months left, and Biden is likely going to be thrown out. We'll be losing. Kamala Harris will likely be stepping in. They are likely going to lose.
Even Stephen King is apparently saying that Joe Biden, you did a great job. No, he didn't, but he's telling him to step down.
Lose this election in November to President Trump, and they are trying to stack the Supreme Court deck as quickly as they can. We're going to talk about that. But first,
we want to tell you about the Wellness Company, because this is a great way for you to make sure that you are prepared for any upcoming disaster, pandemic, or government planned pandemic, whatever it is, if you would not be able to get the medication that you need, this is a good time to think about it in advance, because the worry, of course, is that you wouldn't be able to get exactly what you need in the time of a disaster. Well, that's why the wellness company will help you be prepared and
people and all that kind of stuff.
We tend to sometimes ourselves.
Rabbit. Well, here we go. Okay. Alexandria, let me say it again. I can never get her name out.
Call her AOC. She's a dipshit.
Yeah.
Call her dipshit AOC.
I want to make this easy for us to, okay, I don't want to mess up the first part of the segment when I stumble over her dumb name, which is it's a pseudonym, isn't it? Her name is not, it's like Sandra or something like that.
Sandra.
Okay, let's not get lost in the weeds. Let's get to the story. Here's the story. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, has filed articles of impeachment for 2 Supreme Court justices, which makes it clear to me, and hopefully you too, that Democrats are just desperate to get Supreme Court nominations because they know they are going to lose in the upcoming presidential election. And this is their last shot while President Biden is still in office. So Democrats had hoped to turn the balance of the Supreme Court to a liberal bent because it is currently more justices appointed by conservative presidents, which makes them think that there is a conservative bent and it's unfair to them, to Democrats, to their agenda. So they feel like the clock is ticking and they won't get that chance if the polls are to be believed. So they're pissed at the recent decisions that the court has made, and they will do anything to make sure that they can put in a liberal court. That seemed clear to me just a few days ago when Elizabeth Warren tweeted this. Congress has already used its constitutional authority to expand the Supreme Court 6 times in the past. Court expansion isn't new.
Yes, it
is.
It
isn't radical. It's what we must do.
Overinflating government is literally what the founders of the past spoke against doing, right? Why is it that we have the government sitting so pretty, so fucking overinflated, and we have so many more people that are dying of overdoses, dying of vaccine side effects, dying of homelessness is through the fucking roof, mortgage defaults at alarming rates. Come on.
To reign in a court that Republicans.
And we have even the climate change fucking psycho, spending like over $600 a night on resorts, basically, like these fucking suites and stuff like that all over the world, and they're having steak and lobster dinners, all of this stuff. Come on,
Republicans packed, and that clearly doesn't feel limited by the rule of law. So what she's saying is 9's not enough. Let's get ourselves in there some liberal judges, however many we need to tip the balance to a way we like it. That is what you call a spoiled sport, I would say. She wants new liberal judges appointed ASAP, and clearly that's what AOC wants too, and that's why she filed these articles of impeachment. She says it is against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. Thomas has received luxury vacations from billionaire GOP donor Harlan Crow for decades. Alito has taken gifts from billionaire and GOP megadonor Paul Singer. Now, I'm not saying those things didn't happen, and clearly the court is struggling with its own codes of conduct, but it's kind of funny that she had problems with all of this money, but none with what the Bidens have clearly accepted. We know this now from the Hunter Biden laptop and many other sources. The Bidens have accepted money from China, from Ukraine, from other sources. That's not a problem. No articles of impeachment there from her. What about Justice Sotomayor, who is accused of using her position to sell her books? Maybe this is different and maybe it's not, but the Associated Press reported that she made $3.7 million by pushing her books through her staff, which taxpayers pay for. Is that different? If you're a legal scholar, tell me, are those the same things or not? Or is it just not different because AOC has a political bent and she doesn't want to remove Sotomayor because she was appointed by Obama? Even MSNBC admits that Democrats are doing this just because they don't like the outcome of the court's rulings lately, such as the presidential immunity ruling, such as the January 6th claims. Watch.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York City, and she's filed 2 articles of impeachment against Justice Samuel Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas. And these articles of impeachment are not based in any of the decisions that either of these 2 justices have made, but instead specifically about their conduct around the office. For instance, in both Thomas and Alito.
Yeah. this liberal versus conservative justice paradigm is just theater. They're all appointed for the purpose of taking away more of our rights and facilitating elite agendas. I totally believe that. Left and right, part of the same fucking bird. And I've called out, oh my God, what's his name? Ted Cruz, and the friggin' eye patch guy, and so many others like that are touting themselves as Republican. They're not. They're propagandists. They're lobbyists, and still exploiting citizens. And what's his name? Dan Crenshaw. Anyway, and he's even been in the courts because of financial corruption and stuff like that, where he had to pay huge fines for that, and still made it out on top. And anyways, yeah. So I fully believe that they're all pushing the same shit. Even during the pandemic, they were all pushing the same bullshit. And Doug Ford, the fact that he is still our premier and has not been arrested yet and jailed, blows my fucking mind. Blows my mind.
Case, she is accusing
them
of not properly disclosing financial benefits and gifts that they were given by donors and others, and in some cases people that had business before the court or even had a vested interest, a political interest in some of the issues before the court. And she's also doing that in the case of Clarence Thomas, saying that he refused to recuse himself from certain cases that his spouse had a vested interest in as well. His wife, Ginny Thomas, of course, was very much involved in the Stop the Steal effort, the efforts to overturn the 2020 election and things along those lines. Also, she is accusing Justice Alito as well of refusing to recuse himself from certain cases of which he may have a conflict of interest. So these are very specific accusations that Ocasio-Cortez is leveling against these two Supreme Court justices. It comes at a time where Democrats are getting increasingly frustrated about the direction of the court. Obviously, the decisions that this court has rendered over the past couple of months, but also the conduct of these Supreme Court justices and the lack of oversight that they apparently seem to have without any kind of specific code of ethics that they must follow.
Oh my God.
So again, I ask you, we have proof of all politicians doing this and judges. The judge in the Trump case, in the Trump documents, Stormy Daniels' case comes to mind. She doesn't seem to have a problem with that, right? And someone in the chat rightly points out, what is she doing for her constituents? Obviously, she's doing this for herself, right? It's a political stunt, but she wants different outcomes from the Supreme Court. Clearly, here are her articles of impeachment that she posted, strangely on this Saved by the Bell color stationery. Like, you would think that she's a Democrat, she'd use American colors. Does anyone else think it's weird, this stationery that she's putting? No? Am I reading too much into this?
I'm surprised it's not more rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little trans. It's a little trans. Got a little trans colors.
I'm just looking at this and I'm like, you're a congressional representative. Don't you use red, white, and blue to some iteration?
Or
like,
wouldn't
what's
you use
with the purple, girl?
I mean, wouldn't you use like professional House of Representatives stationery?
Yes, this is what I'm thinking. There's just like, I'm very perplexed by this, and probably I'm reading too much into it, but let me know what you think. So I highlighted here what I think is worth reading. Actually, none of it's worth reading, but we're reading it because it's a political stunt. She's calling the Supreme Court right now a crisis threatening American democracy writ large, a threat to the American rule of law and the integrity of our democracy, and one of the clearest cases for which the tool of impeachment was designed. She said, again, she's selective in where she decides to see this and where she doesn't. She said that Alito has repeatedly failed to disclose that both of them have received millions of dollars in gifts from individuals with businesses that the court, that she believes is against the law. And here is her list of grievances for what they refuse to disclose, what they refuse to recuse themselves of. Again, I'm not saying that this is or isn't true, but it's very selective who she's targeting, because if she removes these two justices before Biden loses office, then she gets those two appointments for the Democratic Party, right? She wants that. They want that clearly. That's what Liz Warren already signaled. So she may pass this in the Senate, maybe, because that's still democratically controlled, but it won't pass the House, which Republicans control. So she doesn't have much chance of success with this. So clearly it's a political stunt, as this meme, which was posted in her feed about this is I'm going to impeach the Supreme Court. And you see these bartenders say what? Like they're literally laughing at her. It's funny because it's a long shot, but she does succeed at setting a dangerous precedence, to my mind, which is that if you don't like the outcome of the court, you dismantle the court. We've seen this played out now with special counsels, right? With with prosecution of political opponents. Now, it would be interesting to see if she continues this, though. Like, we'll play this out. Let's say she's reelected, but Biden is not. Will she drop these articles of impeachment then because she doesn't want Trump to get a nomination? Clearly not. So we'll see. Well, it's a game and a stupid one.
Because like when RGB was still in there, and when the Supreme Court made a decision and the Republicans didn't like it, the Democrats were like, the Supreme Court is the rule of the land. Like, they're the supreme rule of the land. So you got to follow it. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, no, we shouldn't have been saying that.
Right. And, both parties do this, right? They don't like the outcome, so they try to pull the rug out from under. And it's a dirty trick, and we should just stop it. But this is upping the ante. This is doing that more. And she's doing it clearly not for her constituents, because who in her of her constituents wants this? It's sort of her Instagram followers want this. So let us know what you think of this.
A lot of people think she's going to be the next Nancy Pelosi. Like, she's positioning herself to be the next Nancy Pelosi, who Pelosi in the past 24 hours has made quite a few waves, basically saying she doesn't think that Biden will remain in power, that he should, that time has come, that clock is ticking. So Nancy Pelosi kind of putting the screws right now on President.
Too.
He's an amazing human being.
Taxpayer funded child trafficking. It's absolutely
shameful.
Yeah, I want
to get into human trafficking. Sorry.
Abuse, neglect, labor trafficking.
Get blocked, we get banned, we get demonetized.
I know I'm running late.
I can't put my finger on exactly why that is. Well, yesterday, the Senate held a committee meeting and had testimony from HHS whistleblowers and other whistleblowers who are blowing the lid off of the child sex trafficking operation in the United States with your U.S. tax dollars. You are paying for this. Why is there not more outrage about this? I don't know. Joining me now, though, is one of those heroes. And I want you to just take a look at her testimony from yesterday. This is Tara Rodas. She's an HHS whistleblower when called upon by Senator Chuck Grassley. Watch.
Senator Grassley and honorable senators, thank you for your tireless efforts to protect migrant unaccompanied children from abuse, neglect, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and other unspeakable horrors.
And Tara joins us now. Thank you for being so brave, and thank you for the amazing work that you are doing. And I cannot believe the silence. It's absolutely deafening. And when I look at my 3 children, I mean, it really makes me sick to my stomach that more people aren't focused on this story. So welcome to the show, and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, Clayton, thank you so much for shining a light on what we now know is government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. It's absolutely shameful. And I really appreciate that you have been one of the consistent voices speaking the truth on this issue. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your bravery on this story. And I was stunned because you gave this testimony yesterday. And it's remarkable that when these Senate committee hearings like this, or whether it was COVID from Senator Ron Johnson, these things get banned and blocked. And they're only able to live stream them to the senators' own Facebook pages. Like, it's remarkable to me that there's not more coverage of this. Can I just ask you, why do you think that is? Why is there such deafening silence from corporate media? Why wasn't CNN there? Why wasn't Fox News there? Why weren't more people there covering this story on a national level?
Yeah, well, Clayton, I can't really speculate on why all these other media organizations weren't there. They should be questioned as to why they were not there, right? There's probably a myriad of reasons, but nobody wants to stand up to speak the truth about this unspeakable horror. Nobody wants, it seems, media outlets keep telling us, oh, it's just too dark to talk about. But how are we going to solve this problem if nobody's willing to talk about the truth of what's happening to these children? They are abused, neglected, and trafficked, and we need people to stand up for them. And that's what me and many of the other whistleblowers who you've had on your show are doing. And that's what we will do until these children are rescued.
Can you paint us a little picture here of your story, and then I want to get into the details of just how bad it is, and you can walk us through what is unfolding right now across the United States. But when was the moment that you decided to come forward and blow the whistle? I mean, you spent nearly 20 years in public service, and what was the moment that you noticed something was off and you decided to come forward?
Yeah, well, Deb White, who you've had on your show before, when the federal government said we have a crisis at the southern border, which they knew in 2021, they actually put out an all call to all federal employees and said, we need you to leave your job and come help us with the crisis, which Deb and I did. And we were deployed together to the Pomona Fairplex in California. And it only took us 2 weeks in case management, looking into the faces of these children, seeing them scared, seeing them have panic attacks, children having to be put on suicide watch, children screaming for their parents, that we knew something was wrong. I mean, we thought this was a family reunification program. When I said, here I am, send me, I thought I was going to be doing puzzles and playing games with children and then sending them to loving homes. We had no idea that we were about to discover this very organized, cartel-like trafficking scheme. And
I'm going over Tara Rodas. She's on various social media platforms. I highly encourage people to follow her, and she does post regularly proof of this human trafficking, the level of involvement with the American government, Canadian government, no doubt also very much involved in this. Unfortunately, again at the high in specific levels, and yeah, even people taking senators to task and speaking out on this on the record. It's all there. And so I do highly encourage people to take a look at this stuff. It's disgusting. It's awful, but it's happening and it's getting worse. And so it's just stuff that we should be speaking more out on. Anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.